Most people think finding a good woodworking plan just takes patience. It doesn't. The real issue is that most of what you're searching through was never designed to be used in the first place. You open a plan that looks clean. Nice diagram, maybe even a finished photo. It feels like progress, like you finally found something worth building. But then you start looking closer. There's no clear sequence. Measurements are scattered. Steps feel implied instead of explained. So you go back, open another tab, try a different site, scroll through forums, check videos, maybe download a few PDFs. And suddenly, an hour turns into an afternoon. Not because you're being picky, but because nothing feels complete enough to trust. This is where the frustration starts to build. You're not just looking for ideas. You already have those. You know what you want to build. What you're actually looking for is certainty. You want to know that if you start cutting, the pieces will fit. That you won't hit a wall halfway through and realize something important was missing. So you keep searching. You compare plans, you second-guess details. You try to mentally simulate the build before committing. And the more you look, the harder it becomes to decide, because everything looks finished on the surface. But almost nothing shows how it actually comes together. That's when the process starts to feel disproportionate. You wanted to spend your weekend building something. Instead, you're still trying to decide what's safe to build. So, naturally, you delay starting, or you pick something and hope it works. And when it doesn't, it reinforces the idea that maybe you chose wrong, or maybe you missed something. But that's not really what's happening. At first, it looks like a time problem. Too many options. Too much information. Not enough organization. And sure, that's part of it. But even when you narrow it down to a few plans, the hesitation is still there. Because the real issue isn't the number of plans. It's the lack of reliability. Most woodworking plans you find online weren't built and tested before being published. They're drafts. They show what the final piece could look like, but not the full path to get there. So they skip the difficult parts. Assembly order is vague. Measurements are close, but not exact. Materials lists leave room for interpretation. And those small gaps are exactly what create hesitation. Because every missing detail becomes a decision you have to make yourself. And every decision increases the risk of getting something wrong. That's why the search takes so long. Not because you're slow, but because you're trying to avoid a mistake you've probably already experienced before. Wasted wood. Misaligned joints. Projects that stall halfway through. So you compensate by searching longer. Looking for something that feels complete enough to trust. But here's where things shift. The real issue isn't that good plans are hard to find. It's that most plans aren't designed to remove uncertainty. They transfer it to you. They assume you'll figure out the tricky parts, that you'll fill in the gaps, that you'll correct small inconsistencies as you go, which works if you already have a lot of experience. But if you don't, it turns a simple project into a series of decisions you're not fully confident making. That's why even simple builds can feel overwhelming. Not because they're complex, but because the instructions don't fully carry the load. Once you see that, the whole process starts to make more sense. You're not struggling to find plans. You're filtering for clarity. You're looking for something that reduces thinking, not something that requires more of it. Because a usable plan doesn't just show you what to build. Because a usable plan doesn't just show you what to build. It removes ambiguity. It answers the questions before you have to ask them. It shows the order, the measurements, the materials clearly enough that you can move from one step to the next without stopping to reinterpret what you're seeing. And when that's in place, something changes. You stop searching. You start building. Not because you suddenly became more skilled, but because the structure around the project became more reliable. That's the difference most people don't notice at first. They think they need better tools, more experience, or simpler projects. But often, what they actually need is a plan that carries its own weight. One that's been thought through, tested, and clarified before it ever reaches them. So instead of spending hours trying to predict whether something will work, you can focus on actually making it work. If you want to see what that kind of structure looks like in practice, there's a structured breakdown in the description that walks through how these plans are designed and why they feel different. You can also subscribe if you want more videos that break down the hidden reasons projects stall and how to avoid them without overcomplicating the process. And once you stop searching, building starts to feel a lot more straightforward.